the man sitting next to you at work, and yes, the man everyone looks up to as a leader, may secretly fantasize about giving up control when he gets home. Not because he's weak, but because he has a job that's physically and mentally demanding and stressful. He has a need most people completely misunderstand. Today, I'm going to explain why more men are choosing female-led relationships and why the reasons have nothing to do with what most people think. And before you assume this is about kink or bedroom dynamics, stay with me. Because what I'm about to share has far more to do with psychology, stress, trust, and emotional freedom than it does with anything happening behind closed doors. Here's the part most men never talk about. Many men spend their entire lives carrying invisible weight. They make decisions all day, and while they may appear strong on the outside, there's often a question quietly running through their mind. What would it feel like if I could release control? To surrender to the endless decision-making. They have a desire to have a relationship where they can experience structure and still feel supported and safe. That's the curiosity many men never voice, because society tells men they should want control. They should want to lead. They should want to make every major decision. But what happens when a man realizes that being responsible for everything isn't actually bringing him peace? When he discovers that what he really craves isn't more control, but to worship a woman like a queen. Giving her happiness is your happiness. Think about that for a moment. Trust is one of the most powerful psychological needs we have as human beings. Not just trusting someone, being able to lean into someone else's strength and believe that another person is capable of helping guide the direction of your life together. And that's where female-led relationships begin to make sense for many men. Because contrary to popular belief, an FLR isn't always about a woman controlling a man. It's about a woman confidently and intuitively leading a relationship. The secret behind successful female-led relationships isn't control, it's certainty. Think about it. People naturally relax when they know someone capable is confidently steering the ship. In a healthy FLR, both partners contribute, but the woman provides the vision, direction, and decision-making that shapes the future of the relationship. And that's where many people get confused. Control and leadership are not the same thing. Control makes people push back. Leadership makes them lean in. Control creates resistance. Leadership creates security. When a woman leads with confidence, clarity, and purpose, her partner isn't left wondering where the relationship is headed. He knows. And that sense of certainty can create a deeper level of trust, stability, and connection than many people realize. When a female-led relationship is built on love, respect, and emotional intelligence, something remarkable can happen. The relationship starts to feel safer. Not just for her, for him too. And that's where things get interesting. Most people assume men always want to be the ones calling the shots. But what they rarely talk about is the weight that comes with that role. Because decision fatigue is real. Every choice requires energy. Every responsibility adds pressure. After years of feeling like they're supposed to have all the answers, some men discover something surprising. They don't actually want to carry every major decision alone. Instead, they find relief in having a capable woman who can provide direction and say, "We're going this way. I've thought this through. Trust me." For some men, those words don't feel restrictive. They feel liberating. Because for once, they can stop worrying about steering every moment of the relationship and focus on contributing to it. And when that happens, many experience less stress, greater clarity, and a deeper sense of freedom. Not because they've given up responsibility, but because they've found someone they genuinely trust to share and sometimes lead the journey. And fulfillment is where this gets fascinating. Because many men experience a deep sense of satisfaction when they know their efforts are supporting someone they love flourish. When the woman they care about is thriving, growing, and becoming the best version of herself, they often feel a powerful sense of purpose. Not because they're being forced, not because they're losing themselves, but because intentional contribution itself can be deeply rewarding. Here's the part many people overlook. For some men, meaning comes from leadership. For others, meaning comes from service, support, and partnership. Neither is wrong. The real question isn't who should lead. The real question is, what kind of relationship brings out the best in both people? Because fulfillment doesn't always look the same. Some people feel most alive when they're steering the ship. Others feel most fulfilled knowing they're helping the ship reach its destination. When a couple discovers a dynamic that feels authentic to them, something powerful happens. The relationship stops feeling like a role they're supposed to play. It starts feeling like home. That's why female-led relationships aren't one-size-fits-all. They're not about convincing everyone to embrace the same model. They're about finding a dynamic that allows both partners to thrive in a way that feels natural, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. And when that happens, the conversation stops being about who has the power. It becomes about how two people can bring out the very best in each other. Female-led relationships don't all look the same. Some are subtle. The woman naturally handles most major decisions. The man supports her vision, and life simply flows. Others have more defined leadership structures, but that's not the part that matters most. The real question is this: do both people thrive within the dynamic they've created? Because that's where many couples get it backward. They focus on roles before they focus on communication. They focus on labels before they build trust. And trust changes everything. Without trust, leadership feels controlling. Without communication, expectations become confusing. Without mutual respect, even the best-designed relationship begins to crack. But when those foundations are strong, something remarkable happens. The relationship stops feeling like a set of rules. It starts feeling like a place of freedom. A place where neither person has to perform. A place where a man no longer feels pressured to fit someone else's definition of masculinity. A place where a woman no longer feels compelled to hide or shrink her natural leadership abilities. And when both people are free to be fully themselves, something deeper begins to emerge: authenticity. And authenticity has a way of creating the one thing every relationship is searching for: true intimacy. Which brings me to a question many of you may be asking right now. Could something like this actually work in my relationship? Maybe. But perhaps that's not the most important question. A better question might be this: why did this conversation resonate with you in the first place? Because if you've watched this far, there's a chance something you've heard today has sparked a deeper thought. Maybe it challenged an assumption. Maybe it put words to a feeling you've never been able to explain. Or maybe it revealed something that's been quietly missing from your relationship all along. Not leadership, not control, but alignment. The feeling that both people are living in a way that genuinely reflects who they are. Because the healthiest female-led relationships don't begin with rules. They begin with honesty. Honesty about needs, about desires. Honesty about what fulfillment actually looks like. Not what society says it should look like. What it looks like for you. And that's a conversation worth having. Not just with your partner, but with yourself. Because sometimes the biggest relationship breakthrough isn't discovering a new dynamic. It's discovering who you really are beneath all the expectations you've been carrying. The strongest relationships aren't built by people trying to fit into someone else's mold. They're built by two people who have the courage to be authentic and the wisdom to create a relationship that reflects that authenticity. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Female-led relationships aren't for everyone. But the search for a relationship that feels deeply aligned, deeply fulfilling, and deeply authentic? So before you leave, I'd like you to sit with one final question. Is there something this conversation revealed about your relationship, or about yourself, that you've been afraid to acknowledge? Because sometimes the answers we're searching for aren't waiting somewhere out in the world. They're already inside us, waiting for us to be honest enough to see them. And if that's true, what kind of relationship would allow the very best version of you to emerge? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.